I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Robert. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Oh, thanks, Tanya. I am so happy to be here because already we've been chatting and there's so much. I think you should do a bloopers reel and just from the stuff that was recorded that we're not going to maybe be in the interview.
I know that's what happens, right? As soon as anybody is like, hey, I'm Canadian and you're so close, you're in the same province as me. So yeah, we just we jumped down those rabbit holes that we were talking about. So for those people that are listening right now that haven't been stalking you as much as I have, give us a little bit of your history because you have quite an interesting story of sort of how you got here. So shed some light on that for them.
Well, my history started when I was born.
Maybe not that
good.
far back.
I was waiting for a smile because I'll let you know my jokes just are terrible. They are terrible, but yes. Well, you're going to be able to understand this more than most people, I believe, Tanya, because we do live very close to each other, which means you understand what it is to grow up in kind of central Alberta. Yeah. The mindset. Red Deer, where I spent most of my life, it has a name, Redneck Red Deer. And it has that name for a reason because that's the mindset. And so growing up, that was the first place that our family settled. Up until moving to Alberta, we were actually all over the place, moving from town to town, city to city, just so my parents could keep working and support the family. And they would say, hey, Robert, you can do anything you want, is what they'd say. But then what they would model is you do what you have to do to support your family. So it seemed like a disconnect to me. But I took the programming of, okay, when it's time to work hard, stay loyal, even if you don't like the job. And even one of my jobs I was doing was laying down fiberglass. And I don't know if you've ever worked with fiberglass, but those fibers get into your skin every morning, 3 a.m. You wake up and I'd be itching like crazy. But I didn't even consider quitting because of the fact that this is what you do. You support your family.
Yeah. And
with that mindset, by the time I turned 21, I'd actually been laid off from 3 different companies because they closed or downsized. And I'm like, I'm staying loyal. What the heck's going on? And in 1989, when I was laid off from that third company, we were in the middle of one of our famous Alberta oil busts. So there was no real work out there. I decided to start doing something to support my new bride, and until I found a real job, and I started delivering pizzas for Domino's Pizza. And because of my work ethic, I'm the old guy. At 21, I'm the old guy for drivers. All the other drivers like 16, 17, 18. And I knew they wanted to party. So I could convince one of them to switch and give me their closing shift. And I started working long hours. And because of my work ethic, I was able to actually then become a manager. And my wife became my assistant manager. And what did we do? We started working hard, open to close 7 days a week. And just over a year, about a year and a half in, we're now qualified to be franchisees. And Tanya, I don't know how much you know about Domino's, but you can't just buy a franchise. You actually have to successfully manage a store for a minimum of a year, meeting a bunch of criteria. And if you do, you can become a franchisee where they'll waive the upfront franchise fee, and you still have to buy or build a store. So we're now qualified when we get the shocking news. My franchisee comes up and says, I decided I'm selling my 2 stores. I don't want to be in Domino's Pizza anymore. And we knew, we had watched enough stores getting sold around us that the first people replaced were the managers because the new owners came in and wanted to do it their way. So I went into fear. And thank goodness we had relationships with other franchisees. So my solution was, honey, we got to start talking to them, find a new job. And she looks at me, she's like, why would we do that? Why don't we just buy the store we're in? And I looked at her, I'm like, because we don't have any money. That's why we would do that. Like, hello,
One tiny little hiccup in that plan.
right? Money. What do you need money for? And I will say one of the biggest blessings in my life is that my wife, I was innocent until I met my wife. And then she corrupted me in so many amazing ways. Because, you know, we've been blessed. We met here in Red Deer, Central Alberta when we were 13. We started dating when we were 16. We got married when we were 19. And we just celebrated our 32nd wedding anniversary.
Oh,
Now,
that's
Tanya,
awesome.
don't do the math. Don't do the math. I don't want you to know how old I am. and because she's an outside the box thinker, she doesn't believe in the box. So it's like, just because you don't
Sounds
think
like
there's
a
a
kindred
way.
spirit.
Yeah. Well, I, you know, kind of rabbit hole side note, I will, and in all seriousness, I would not be doing what I do today if it wasn't for her. See, if it was left to me, I would be miserable in a job, but I'd be comfortable.
Yeah.
That's all I would. But she's not willing to let me play a smaller game than I'm capable of, and that's a gift we now give each other. And if there was something I'd wish upon all your listeners, is to have people in your life that hold you to the higher standard, that don't let you play small, and they're, even if it means kicking you in the ass when they have to, because that's why I get to have the life I have today, is because she's held me to that higher standard. And even though there's a lot of times I was not happy, did not agree, or put up resistance, she was too tenacious to let it go. And thank you, thank you, thank you. Right. So because I knew there was no sense not giving it a go. I said, okay, let's learn. How do we buy a store then if we don't have any money? And over the next 4 or 5 months, we made a lot of mistakes. We stumbled, we fell, we paid someone $1,000 that guaranteed us financing, and then as soon as we paid them, then they're like, nope, can't find anybody. And every time we hit an obstacle, I wanted to quit. She wouldn't let us. And it's like we'd sit down, what did we learn? And we started getting confidence of knowing what to say, what not to say. And it's about 4 months in, and we're back at the bank that we deal with. And here in Alberta, and you probably remember this, depending on how old you are, is to get an appointment with a bank business manager, good luck.
Yeah.
It's almost like you had to know somebody.
Yep.
And we had tried to get an appointment with the branch bank business manager. We couldn't. But we're not sitting in the office with the actual manager of the whole bank, who loved my wife and I because she knew we were hard workers. And we're talking. She goes, so how's it going with the store? And we're like, not good. She goes, well, have you ever talked to Grant? And we're like, we've tried, but we can't even get an appointment. She's like, come with me. Now, for your listeners, every relationship you have, cherish it. Don't be the bank customer that only the bank hears from you when something goes wrong. Be the person. I love to still go to the bank live and walk in and just light the place up.
Yeah.
Because of this experience too, she literally stood up, took us by the hand, walked us across the bank, knocked on the door, said, Grant, this is Robert and Roxanne Riopel. They're amazing, hardworking kids. They want to buy the store they're managing right now, the Domino's Pizza. Take care of them. And because she introduced us, he said, come on in, I'll make time for you. And because we had stumbled and learned what to say and not to say, we knew what to say. And next thing you know, he's not giving us financing for the store. He actually gave us 100% financing for both stores my franchisee had for sale. And we became franchisees. And we were franchisees for 9 years. And the first 2 years, we probably should not have made it because we knew how to run a store, but we didn't know how to run a business. And there's a big difference, Tanya.
Well, and franchises are, there's just that other added component to it. And I know, because I used to run a Canada Bread franchise. There's almost like that added little thing where you want, you have some ideas, but sometimes you're a little restricted.
Yeah, absolutely. But
yeah.
See, there's a reason I do love franchises is even though they taught us how to run the store and they didn't necessarily teach us how to run the business, we stumbled through it and we made it work. But a statistic that Domino's used to love to tell everybody is because 95% of the franchisees started as drivers, just like myself. And the statistic they like to tout out there and let people know is that the average franchisee is only 23 years of age. And when we bought our first stores, that's how old we were. So we were the statistic. But the statistic you never heard about was that the average brand new franchisee went bankrupt within 6 months of becoming a franchisee. And a couple reasons. One, they didn't know how to run the business side. Being a manager, their franchisee was taking care of all the things, right? But two, going to what you were just talking about, is you're 23, you've gone from being a manager, having to follow everybody else's rules, to now I'm the boss. I'm the manager. I'm going to do it my way. And all of a sudden, from doing it their way, changing the system, they would struggle and then go bankrupt, most of them. Or they learn quickly and turn it around.
Right.
And that was the big thing. And the last part of our time as franchisees, we actually, for the last 10 months, my wife and I lived in our RV. And we actually traveled to places where stores were bankrupt or about to go bankrupt. And we would actually go in, retrain all the staff, and 3 months later, we could leave with the sales and the profits going up by 100+%. And actually, the first store we did that, because we had moved away to Calgary for work, was back here where I started driving in Red Deer, Alberta. We walked in the store and we ended up having to turn around. And then we were up in Yellowknife, we were in Eugene, Oregon, and we lived in our RV so we could have our pets and that with us instead of living in hotels. And people would go, "Oh my God, you guys are brilliant. How are you turning these stores around so easily?" And we'd say, we'd go in, cut out all the crap that was not Tom Monahan's system. We'd bring it back to the system. And amazingly, the stores do well. So that I'm a huge believer in systems. I absolutely am. And one of the reasons we were doing that part near the end of our career in Domino's is because we were now, we started making pretty good money when we figured it out. And Tanya, I'm about to shock you because I'm going to tell you there's something that we did that probably no one else you've ever known has ever done. As we started making money, we started spending more money than we were earning. I know. You probably know no one who's ever done that.
For those of you who can't see, I'm raising my hand. Been there.
Yeah. I got both hands up, both feet up, right? And at the 8-year mark, we were actually over $150,000 in debt and going down quickly. And that's when we were introduced to personal development for the first time. Well, sorry, that we actually took it seriously.
Right.
I remember my brother-in-law, and again, not to age myself, he goes, "Look what I just got in the mail. It's this set of cassette tapes from this guy called Tony Robbins." And he's like, "You should listen to this." And I'm like, "I'm listening to that. I don't need that stuff."
Yeah.
Right? So we went to a 3-day weekend right here in Red Deer, Alberta, where we, first of all, learned why we were in debt. Second, we took ownership of why we were in debt. Not blaming anybody else. There was our spending habits, our beliefs. That's why we're in debt. But third, we learned specific things to do to get out of debt.
Mm-hmm.
And when we left that weekend, we did what unfortunately only 3% of Americans and Canadians do, North Americans. We actually took action. Most people, they walk out and go, "Oh, that was life-changing," and then you don't do crap with it.
Yeah.
But out of our stress and position we're in, because I probably would have done the same thing, but I was tired of being stressed out because financial stress, oh my God, probably got to be the worst stress out there.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
we started taking action, and next thing you know, we go from being over $150,000 in debt to actually being completely retired, financially free 9 months later at the age of 32. And our minds go, "Wow, that worked."
Yeah.
If this information gave us that result, what would more learning do? And for the next 2.5 years, we just dove in, learned from as many masters as we could, because I'm a believer, don't just learn one way. Because you'll be able to take clues, as I call now, from golden nuggets from everybody. And I found my passion during that time was to be a trainer. And here's how my passion of what I do today turned out. It started with, I believed if I could even help one person do what my wife and I accomplished, go from being deep in debt to financially free, it would make it all worthwhile. And now for the last 18 and a half plus years, I've been blessed to travel around the world several times, personally train over 500,000 students in 3 to 5 day trainings where I have 100 to 6,000 students at a time. And I've been living my passion. And that's why I just love to then, how can I add value? How can I add value? So that's kind of a little background. Little long story short version.
I love that. I love that. And we were talking earlier too, like, you know, when you were saying about financial stress, and there's a lot of people that are going through that right now, just of what's been happening over the last few years. And we're hearing a lot about people just feeling that overwhelm, what, you know, whether it's financial stuff or just with work or trying to, you know, restructure, because there's a lot of that that's happening. So talk to us a little bit about some of your ideas on how to overcome that feeling of like just being bogged down.
Yeah. Well, first understand why you're overwhelmed. And what happens for most people is there's them, they've got their intention or where they are, I mean, and then they've got a goal, a vision, something they want to accomplish or where they think they should be. And the moment they identify that, they come from being in the present, their mind instantly jumps 1,000 miles ahead, trying to figure out all the what if scenarios. What if this happens? What if that happens? What would I do here? And no wonder you get tired chronically, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and overwhelmed, is because you're trying to figure out everything. And you're never going to be able to figure out every possible solution. Think of it like floating down a river. And until you can only see as far as you can see until you turn the next curve, then you'll see more. And so what I teach people is one of the easiest ways to overcome overwhelm. First of all, take a deep breath in. Let it out and say, what's one step I can take right now to move in that direction? And I love that you have over your shoulder on the wall that sign, love where you are. Because what a perfect example of being present. So what you do is you come back to being the present, not so overwhelmed with how everything's going to work or what it should look like or when it should happen, but okay, what's one thing I can do right now in this moment to move that in that direction? And then as soon as you take that step, I love the saying that says, one step in the right direction is worth 1,000 years of thinking about it. And that's what paralyzes most people, is they overthink and then they never take any action. So you take that one step, and then from my book, Success Left a Clue, the 6 steps in there, step number 4 is celebrate. Celebrate that you took that step. And it doesn't have to be, okay, I'm going to have a party, I'm going to invite all the friends over. Woo! It could be something as simple as patting yourself on the back and going, great job. Now, what's the next step?
Yeah.
So that's the easiest way to overcome overwhelm, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think it's true. Like that sign came to me because I was realizing that I was forgetting to enjoy where I was, because again, I was constantly focusing, you know, you hit that goal and you're excited and you're like, hey, this is awesome. But in 2 seconds flat, I'm on to the next goal. And I realized I need to stop. And, you know, I talk about this in last week's episode for those that are listening, which hasn't aired yet. So this is going to sound weird, but in last week's episode, when you listen to this, I talk about, I am so good at setting business goals. I set them, I do the steps, I crush them. I have no issue with it. I've always been really good. Personal goals, on the other hand, some reason those two things don't correlate together. And you know, and I really had to do like what you had talked about just previously, is really sitting down and looking at, why is this not working? Like, what is going on? And realizing I was doing exactly what you were saying. And I had come to that realization of going, I'm looking like way ahead when really I need to just set something realistic and then hit that and just enjoy that for a little bit. Instead of like getting really close to it and then moving the goalpost. And in my personal life, I move the goalpost pretty quick.
Right.
So,
you
and then
I realize how good of a construction person you are.
Right. And but then I would get upset because I'm never, you know, oh, I didn't do it, or I missed a day or whatever, instead of going, why can't I just keep hitting, you know, like a walking goal is what I talk about in the episode. Why can't I just hit that goal constantly, hit those steps for weeks and be excited about, I made the goal again. 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 And then have a week of that and then go, okay, now I can move my target to something else.
Yes.
And then that was really, really helpful, you know, for me to do, but I wasn't doing that, but I wasn't realizing the correlation of going, why can I do this in my business life, but I can't do it in my personal life?
Well, see, and that's the importance of having coaches in your life.
Yeah.
You know, when I started writing my book for years and years and years ago, it then became a procrastination write, because I am a world-class procrastinator. I will tell you, I'm like, if there was an Olympics for procrastination, gold medal all around. And so when I first originally started writing the book, one of my working titles was 3, 2, 1 Rich. And it was a countdown of here, if you really want to be rich, and it's not just only rich in money. I believe we're holistic.
Yes.
Rich in mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and financial, all areas of your life. So have 3 coaches in your life. You might have a business coach, a health coach, a cooking coach, a relationship coach. Have 3 coaches. So with what you're talking about, because you are exactly, that's the reason you do this podcast on it. Because that which we need to learn the most, we teach. Why do I keep teaching around the world what I teach? Because I need it in my life. I need the constant reminder. I'm not this guru. Oh, you're perfect. Ask my wife, she'll tell you. She'll be the first to tell you, right? And which is perfect in itself. And so when you have what you just nailed on the head is because when it's a business goal, something that you set, it's almost like it's for someone else.
Yeah.
And we'll keep our commitments to others before, much easier than we do ourselves. So this is why you have an accountability partner or a coach that is there for you personally. Because now, as you're being held accountable, I guarantee you, your personal goals you'll start to do.
Yeah.
Because you're being held accountable.
And that's exactly what happened. Yeah. I had somebody else who, I did that. I found an accountability coach. And then I said, what I need you to do is you need to tell me when it's okay for me to move that goalpost.
That's right.
And that helped me because otherwise I was just like, well, let's just push it. Let's just push it. And she was like, no, I will let you know when it's time. And I mean, now I'm almost, now I'm double my goal because I allowed someone else to step in and help me. Right.
That's awesome.
It was so much well, and it reduced stress because I'm like, I don't have to think about it. They're going to let me know how many steps I need to do today.
That's right. And if you want to take it to another level, and here's a mistake I've noticed most people make in business and personally in life, is they say, yeah, it's great. I love the concept of having a coach, but then they want to find a free coach.
Right.
You have to be willing to pay. You have to be, and it doesn't have to be necessarily money, because I get some people, but Robert, I can't afford it. Then get creative. What value? Because currency isn't just money. What value can you have in exchange to have someone? One of my favorite coaches I used to have that I hated them. I absolutely hated them. And I paid them a lot of money. Do you know why? Because they wouldn't take any of my crap.
Yeah.
When it came to our calls, it was like, stop, get out of that story. Did you or did you not accomplish what you said? And so it got to the point where, because I knew my call was coming and I hated having that call, I wanted to just be able to make it as quick as possible. All of a sudden, 11th hour, I'm getting stuff done so that when I get on that call, yep, did this. And all of a sudden I realized, no wonder I'm paying them so much. Because very few people can get me to actually, for my own stuff, accomplish my goals like they can.
Yeah.
And is that worth it? You better believe it.
Yeah.
You better believe it, right? So have 3 coaches in your life, 2 mentors in your life. And the difference between a coach and a mentor, a coach is the one that's going to ask you the questions. What do you want? How to guide you? All that. A mentor is someone who's accomplished what you want to accomplish. And they're not there to coddle and ask questions. They're just going to say, if you want to get where I'm at, do this. So one of the things I love to do is I've been blessed to train thousands of trainers around the world. And when I bring on mentoring students, they pay me a lot of money and they know the rule. When I give you a task, you don't call me or set up our next appointment until you've accomplished that task. And I don't care if it's a week or it's 5 months. You've paid up front. Is put on you, because I don't have the time to be a coach to them.
Right.
I can just say, Robert, is it you've traveled around the world and do what you do? Well, here's what I've gone through. So your first step is practice, practice, practice. So here's some practicing steps. Once you've accomplished, let's set up our next call. And literally, I've had people where I haven't heard from them for months because their mind got in their own way. They weren't doing it. Or if they reached out to me, I'd say, did you accomplish the task? If it was a no, get it done, then contact me. And it sounds brutal to some people, but I know what it takes to get to the level I'm at. I don't have time to try and convince people to be willing to put the work in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's a mentor. And then be a part of at least one mastermind. Quit trying to figure it out on your own. You know, as Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. And that's why when Napoleon Hill coined the phrase mastermind groups, I just finished running a powerful 2-day mastermind with people from around the world. Because look, in school, 1 + 1 = 2. But in a mastermind, 1 + 1 = 11. Because when now I say something that might trigger something in you, Tanya, which triggers something in someone else. And also when our minds all come together, it's amazing at what can be accomplished. So if you do that 3, the 2, and the 1, you'll have wealth in all areas of your life. And that's been my experience. Not what I think will work, but that's what I've experienced myself.
Yeah. And I love that, because I think, there's so much in that. But I agree that when, when we had talked about the overwhelm and just taking one step, that people get stuck, right? Because they get stuck in, well, what should that step be? What is it? And it's like, just anything, like, it doesn't
Yes.
matter. It could be cleaning off your desk. It could be like,
But what if I fail? What if
Yeah.
I fail? There's no failure, there's feedback.
Yeah. And I love what you said too, is that, I've talked with, a lot of people and a lot of my clients that have said, well, I don't know, I want to, but I'm financially struggling right now, which is something that we hear really often. And I'm a big, big, big believer in collaboration. So I always go, well, collaborate with your coach. Like, I think my first 3 coaches that I had, no physical money ever exchanged hands, because I went to them and I said, like, I really need to work with you. I'm really struggling right now, but I have this to offer. Like, I have this skill. And for me, it was bookkeeping, because that's what I came up in university for. So I was like, is this something that you could use? Could I trade this with you? And I usually was able to find something that I could trade. So, I think that that's, so important. And I was so glad that you brought that up, that you have a skill that somebody else needs. And somebody else likes to do something you don't. It's weird,
Exactly.
but people do. And, and so I think that, a lot of times, especially when it comes to coaches and mentors and stuff like that, that people just go, well, I don't have the money, to pay that. And then they end it there, as opposed to going, you have a choice. You can sit there and stay in the excuse, or you can find, like you were saying with your wife, think outside of the box. How can you still get what you want? Because I think it's amazing when there's something you really want, think back in your life, even if it's like something in your house, even if it's like furniture or something that you really, really wanted, what were you willing to do to get that? And then, think, how can I use that to
Oh,
get
exactly.
what I want right now?
And that's where creativity comes in. And in the book I'm now writing called The Authority Key, I talk about the Authority Master Key, which I use an acronym. I love acronyms. And I use the acronym VITAL. How do you become vital in life and in business? And the V stands for virtuoso. And a virtuoso is someone who becomes a specialist at something. But I also use it in a virtuoso is someone who's willing to just get started and jump in wherever they can. Unfortunately, what I see in a lot of people nowadays is they go, oh, I want to do that, but I better start at the top, or
Yeah.
it's not worth it. It's like, no, the way I've been successful at everything I've done, Tanya, is and literally, not just figuratively, I've scrubbed toilets, I've shined shoes, I've pressed shirts, I've delivered food to my mentors. And this is where the creativity, because people get stuck in that currency thing. It's only about money, but there's more currencies than that. And a key of that is, in the beginning, be willing to trade extra value of what you give for what you get. And then as you grow, own with confidence, not arrogance, who you are and the value you have. So as an example, today, with what I get paid to travel around the world train, unless it's someone that I know I just want to do a collaboration with them, I'm not going to lower my rates to what I would have done 15 years ago, right? Because I went through those struggles, and because I wasn't valuing my worth, no one else was.
Right.
And until I owned it, no one else would. But then I get frustrated. Why don't they see my value? Because I wasn't seeing it.
Right.
So it came across everything I did. And I remember I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, and my wife and I were now financially free. We're volunteering a lot because we're giving back. And we're, especially to the person who was one of my mentors. And I finally got the courage to ask him a question I've been wanting to ask him for a while. We finished doing an evening where he's doing a preview. We're sitting down, we're actually having a drink together. And I finally got the courage and I said, I have been meaning to ask you a question. He goes, what is it? I said, would you mentor me? And he looks at me and he thinks a moment and he goes, no. He says, I don't have the time to do one-on-one mentoring. And if I did, it would probably cost you about $1 million. Now, Tanya, I was gracious. Thank you very much. I appreciate you considering it. The moment my wife and I were headed back to our hotel room, I lost it. I lost it. How dare he? With all the volunteering we've been doing, all the service, who does he think he is? That's it. We're not volunteering anymore. This is absolute crap. And my wife's let me just unload. And she's just listening. And then I finish and she goes, are you done? I'm like, what do you mean am I done? Are you done with all this? I don't like, she goes, obviously you're not done. Okay, come on. Right? And so I finish off, she goes, okay, are you done? I said, yeah, I'm done. She goes, well, first of all, I want you to know, wrong answer. What do you mean wrong answer? She goes,
Like
well,
all of
one
it?
thing, yeah, well, pretty much. She goes, but specifically, she says, one thing he said is we're not volunteering anymore. We're going to volunteer even more. We're not going to stop. We're going to volunteer even more. I thought she'd gone off a rocker. I'm like, what are you crazy? She goes, hear me out. I'm like, fine.
I don't want
And
to.
fine. Yeah, fine is an acronym for something else as well.
Yeah.
But we won't go into that. Probably a family show. And she goes, let me ask you a question. She goes, if I understand this correct, you asked a question, he spoke his truth, and now you're upset that he spoke his truth. I'm like, what? She goes, he spoke his truth. He doesn't have the time. You know how busy he is. And do we have $1 million to spend for you to be mentored? I'm like, no. So why are you so freaking upset that he spoke his truth just because you can't handle it? Yeah, but she goes, stop. Here's what we're going to do. She goes, is there more than one way to accomplish our goal? Maybe. Do you have a suggestion? She goes, when we're volunteering, are you learning from? Well, yeah. She goes, so we volunteer more so that you can be in that energy and watch him even closer. He's going to mentor us whether he knows it or not. And so we stepped up our volunteering, and next thing you know, I'm asked to become his personal assistant. Where literally I'm getting his meals, making sure he's ready to hit the stage in the morning. I'm shining his shoes if needed. I'm pressing his shirts if needed. All of service, no grumbling. I'm loving this. Because then the major part is when he's on stage, I have to sit at the back of the room and watch every move he's making. I'm not allowed to do any other multitasking. So all of a sudden, I'm having to watch him up to 12 hours a day on stage so that even if he looks my way and goes like this, I'm running because I know he's there. I'm setting the stage. I'm learning logistics. I'm learning what it takes to really be a trainer. And so when all of a sudden I start becoming a trainer, I become his first protege. I go on to train hundreds and thousands of trainers around the world. All of a sudden, I ended up becoming his first mentoring student, and I didn't have to pay him a dime. It cost me maybe 2.5 years of my life of actually being of service. So was that a good payoff? I look back and I go, oh yeah. Because now, put aside everything else, if you want to just talk money, the millions of dollars I've made because of that skill that I learned and mentored from one of the best in the world. How do you put a price on that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a creativity. When you want to become that virtuoso, Domino's Pizza, I started as a driver, right? Start anywhere you can to be in that energy and watch where your life can go.
Yeah, I love that. So talk to us a little bit more about Success Left a Clue, because that book is out and available. And all the listeners, I'm going to have the link of where you can go to get it for free. So thank you so much, first of all, for offering that. But talk to us a little bit about what made you decide to write that book, and then a little bit about what people can expect out of it.
Oh, for sure. Well, I'll tell you, I became a student in 2001, and in 2002, someone on stage said, write a book. And I went, that's what I'm going to do. And I didn't know what I was going to write the book about, but I knew I was going to write a book. And it only took 15 years to write it. Remember what I said about procrastination, right? But here's the reality of it, is because it's me in a book. It's my quirkiness, my bad jokes, but my life experiences. And the reason it took the 15 years is because from not only being a student, becoming a trainer, training other trainers, but getting to share the stage with some of the top thought leaders in the world, I started to notice clues from success, people who have success and people who don't. And that's kind of what formulated the book. There's a reason it took so long to do it. And in the book, I outlined 6 very, very simple steps, Tanya, that if someone was to do these steps, it will change their life. And I want your listeners, because you already mentioned, I want them to be clear on something. Because you were so gracious enough to have me on your podcast, them being able to get the digital copy of it is going to be a gift from us to them. But it comes with a caveat we'll talk about at the end. And on this book, I could have made it so sound complicated and like it took me decades of hard work to come and put it down into these, all these big long steps and all that people would read it and never do it. I chose to keep it simple so that anybody can do it. But one of the things that would go on in people's minds is some people look at it and go, it can't be that simple. Please believe me when I say it can. Do not let the simplicity of it fool you. Because if you do the steps, watch what will happen. You'll be blown away. Step number 1, simple, dream. But don't just dream big. As Les Brown, he did the forward for my book, started as a mentor, became a great friend. And I now mentor him too. We gift each other that way. I love what he says. He says the issue is not that we set our goals too high and we miss them. It's that we set them too low and we hit them. That gets us playing mediocre. So dreaming big is about how to dream big, do your vision boards, why it's important to dream big. So I go through all that. Second step, find a mentor or someone to model from. Quit trying to figure it out on your own. Unless you're an Elon Musk or a Jeff Bezos, chances are whatever you want to accomplish, someone else has done it before you. So find out how they did it. And we could go down a whole rabbit hole of why people automatically reinvent wheels, even when they see a system in front of them, because it comes from the schools. We could go down that rabbit hole. That might be another interview. But find a mentor or someone to model from. But there's a second part to that as well. It's not just about who can I be mentored by, who can I model? But at the same time, ask yourself, who can I be a mentor for? Who can I be a model to? Start giving back. And the number one thing I get from people when I say that, though, is they go, but Robert, I've never accomplished anything. I've never done what you've done. So how can I be? It's like, stop. I don't care who you are. Chances are you've done something that another person can benefit from. You've come through something, a struggle that you got through, that now your knowledge can help someone else. So ask yourself, start giving as you're receiving. Don't just wait to receive, and then when I'm successful, I'll give back. No, just start now. Watch how it changes your life and others. Step 3, take action. Again, that saying, one step in the right direction is worth 1,000 years of thinking about it. Most people think themselves out of success. Step number 4, celebrate your success. See, this is the one, Tanya, that most people don't do, and this is why it sabotages their success, is because they've started dreaming, they've got mentors, they've taken actions, but because they forget to celebrate, all of a sudden their mind goes, hello, obviously, why do you need to be successful if you don't even, love where you're at?
Yeah.
Or love where you are, right? And so,
and I think you need that sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I think you need celebration for when you move forward. And for me, it's so beneficial when I get to that moment where I'm feeling stuck again, because then I can think back and go, we've been here, we've made it.
Yes.
We can do this, right? So it's almost an inspiration point that you need to go back on. And I actually have on my wall, I actually have a board that's like, remember, and then I list all of the stuff that I was like, I want to remember this feeling, this emotion, this thought, this accomplishment or whatever, so that when I'm feeling down, I can go back and go, you're not a failure. Look at the list of stuff that you've done. And some of it is just, some of it's silly. Some of it's, I ate the whole cake is actually on there because I was like, I want to have my cake and eat it too. So I bought a little cake and I ate the whole thing. And I'm like, now I can say I had my cake and ate it too.
Oh my goodness. See, and you just taught me something. I love that about having the remember when board. Oh my goodness. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to be
one of those. Take it.
Oh man. Okay. When can I be at your place? I'll pick it up. I'll come and hang it. Oh, that's not what you meant.
No, you got to make your own.
Okay. That I can do. And that's why, I start every day with my success journal. I write down, and it started off with writing down at least 5 successes from the day before. So that I start my day going, look at what I've already accomplished from the day before. Now I get to move forward. And over the years, it's morphed itself into a success or gratitude journal. and I write down what and who I'm grateful for in my life. And I've got so much to be grateful for. And that's allowed me, because I've traveled around the world. One of the things that I use as an anchor is the moment I see myself getting frustrated or complaining about something, all of a sudden, as soon as I catch myself, I go, oh, there's a first world problem for you. What do I have to complain about when I've seen people in countries with far less than I have be happier? And then that's all I'll say to myself is there's a first world problem, and it snaps me out of it, right? So that celebration is so key, so key. Fifth step is the celebration will lead to you having more belief in yourself. Low self-esteem, I've discovered, is one of the greatest obstacles for most people, including, and I'm pointing at myself, I still go through self-esteem issues, not believing I'm good enough. And this is why you surround yourself with people that, I'm going to put you to the test, Tanya. Have you heard the saying, surround yourself with like-minded people?
Yes.
Is that something you believe in?
Yes, yes, to a point, but I really like having diversity in the people who are around me, because
Clarify why.
I don't want to just have people who think like I think. I want people who are going to challenge me to look at things differently.
Oh, thank you so much. See, and it wasn't until last year that this became a paradigm shift for me. I could be on stage in front of 3,000 people and say, aren't you happy you're in a room full of like-minded people? And they're like, yes. And then one of my mentors last year, he said, look, and I'll use the example of this. Tanya, you and I could say, we're going to go to Klondike Days when they decide to put them on again. And so we're going to head down to the bus stop and catch a bus to go to the fair. There might be 3 people waiting there. Now, in that moment, all 5 of us are of like mind. We're waiting for the bus, and the bus is going to take us where? To the fair. That's it. He said, so don't surround yourself with like-minded people, because if you're surrounded by complainers, you're going to be a complainer. So that's the kind of trap that you can fall in. He said, surround yourself with growth-minded people, because the difference is not only are they the ones that pick you up when you've fallen, cheer you on when you're doing well, but they're also the ones that are willing, listen to the words, willing to have the tough conversations when you need a kick in the ass, to say step up, to play different, think differently, get out of your own way. So I love, to surround, and so when it comes to self-esteem and believing in yourself, surround yourself with growth-minded people and watch what you can accomplish. Because then step number 6, and this is where the don't let the simplicity fool you. Step number 6 is repeat the first 5 steps. Because the way it works is when you dream big, you'll find a mentor, someone to model from. You'll take action, you'll celebrate the success, which elevates your belief in yourself, which allows you to set bigger dreams and goals, find greater mentors, take greater actions, greater celebrations, greater belief, and it becomes a beautiful perpetual cycle that you go into. So that's the 6 steps of the book. And because step number 3 is action, when your listeners, and thank you if you're still listening, thank you for your time, because your time is such a precious commodity. When they do they go and they download the book, all the way through, I have action steps. And I'll actually say in the book, do not read any further until you've done this action. And then the next chapter I started with, if you haven't done the last action, stop reading now, go back and complete the action. Because I know, based upon myself, we're creatures of habit. And so I wrote it that way of what kick in the butt do I need to actually make a change instead of going read. Yep, that was nice, and putting it on the shelf. So that's the 6 steps.
And it's true, because there's a lot of people who do that, right? They read a book and then they go, well, I read that book, but I really, it didn't do a lot for me. And it was like, oh, like what steps did you get stuck? Well, I didn't do any. That's why it doesn't work.
Like, hello, if you want to make change,
you just made that business book a fiction. Is really what you did.
Thank you. and I'm gonna give your readers a tip, because I know one of the overwhelms. Let's go back to overwhelm. One of the overwhelms that people get is that, well, I'm reading all these self-help books, and it just, so for me, I will read a nonfiction, something to do with business or personal development, whatever it is. But then the next book I read is a total fiction book. Give me Lord of the Rings. Give me Game of Thrones. I want to dive deep into fiction. So, and then my next book, I'll go back to nonfiction. So I found by staggering my reading, I don't get into the overwhelm, because the mind will automatically say, I've got to use everything I just learned. No, take one thing, take two things, put it into practice. Don't worry about everything. And that's why when you study a book, like I'm rereading right now, I'm rereading E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And what an amazing, simple to understand book. But now I'm reading it from a different perspective. And then when I read it again, it'll come from a different perspective. I'm now highlighting, underlining. How did I miss that before? Well, the first time I read it, I wasn't in the same mind space. So I read it, but I didn't get it.
Right.
So by rereading it and now studying it, that's where you get it. So that's why your greatest books, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Why do you think it's impacted so many people's lives? Because the people whose lives it impacts are the ones that it's dog-eared. They've got little sticky notes out. They've got highlights. It's, the book looks atrocious because they've gone through it so many times. You hear Bob Proctor talk about it all the time, how it was always in his pocket. He always had it. So that's the books that change people's lives are the ones that people actually go and read again and again and again. That's how you master.
Yeah. And I love that. I had just spoke with Aurora Winter, another fellow Canadian and author. And in her book, she actually has that, like, dog-ear these pages, highlight them. And those are my favorite. I have, in my mastermind, we all share our books. But if we get in trouble, if we get a book from somebody and it's not dog-eared and there's no notes, or like, that's the prerequisite. I want the books that you have taken the time to write in the margins, that you've highlighted. Because it's amazing when, we all use a different colored highlighter, but it's amazing when the book goes around, how much more you gain out of it. Because you're like, oh, that's really interesting. Like that Dale highlighted this part. I wonder, what his thought process was. And all of a sudden you're picking up different things in the same book that you've all read.
Okay, Tanya, I don't know why we were meant to have this conversation because not only with your Remember When board, but I am lit up right now because you just made me realize something that has been a gift in my life for 20 years that I didn't even realize. People wondered how I, as the first protege of my one mentor, how I was able to go so deep into the trainings and understanding. And what you just said also made me realize I've got 16 major manuals for 16 courses I can teach of his material. And because I was the very first one, I didn't get emailed the copies to print out. I actually had to take his binder to Staples, unstaple it, each section, photocopy it, staple it, put it back in his, put the new one in mine. And so all my copies are actually right from his copies of what he teaches, but it's got all of his sticky notes that were on them, all his writing in the columns, all of the things. I'm the only person in the world that has those, other than him, that has those copies of those notes. And so it's not just the words, it's those deeper meanings and adjustments. Wow. Thank you. I did not even realize. You just blew my mind open.
Yeah. And truly, to me, I think that those little margin notes, those dog-eared pages, those highlights, those almost add to the knowledge of whoever the author was. Yes. Because it's like being in your own mastermind. You're seeing something from someone else's point of view.
Yeah, and like even Think and Grow Rich, I now have an affiliation, an association with the Think and Grow Rich society that's here in Canada, that are the people that have the exclusive rights to the Napoleon Hill Foundation, all the unpublished notes from Napoleon Hill, where we have access to read what never made it into book or what he was thinking about. And that access to that, you talk about how much Think and Grow Rich has impacted life, but now to get the deeper dive into it, of being almost like you're right beside Napoleon Hill as he was writing it, like, wow, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the knowledge that's locked, away that no one else gets to see is an incredible superpower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. So thank you for 2 big gifts already that you've given me.
Aw, that's awesome. So talk to us a little bit about the authority key and a little bit more, because you're in the midst right now of actually writing that book.
Yes.
And so I'm going to call you out on it for some accountability, because now it's going to be out there even more. So you can't procrastinate 15 years for me to read that one.
Right? Well, when you ask and when you look at things, have you ever noticed, Tanya, that there can be people that have the same amount of knowledge and experience as you do, but yet they seem to make more money? Have you ever noticed that?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And so the question is why? Well, they're seen as an authority. So as I've been going through the years, I've noticed some of the differences between what authority is, what it isn't. And what I've noticed is there's some practical skills, things that you can do. Being a podcast, having your own podcast is one way to elevate yourself as an authority. And so I cover some of the practical skills. I use the acronym UNLOCK because the title is going to be The Authority Key, How to Unlock and Open the Doors to Your Success. And so UNLOCK will be the acronym of the practical skills. But what I realized is there's a difference between having the practical skills and what really allows those skills to either work and when they work to stay with you. Because how many people have started to get some success and then they sabotage or they implode? And so the majority of the book is going to be about the deep dive. Who are you within being that authority? Who are you that allows yourself to have the life to be, as you start to get the success, to not allow it to implode you, to allow you to actually own it, value it, just really cherish it and add more value with it. And so I'm working both on here's your practical steps, but here's you. Let's work on you. And so that's what I'm doing with the book. So I cover things like the OPEN is the acronym for what I call the 4 phases in life that everybody's always going through. And most people, they resist chaos when it comes in their life. But when they understand that chaos is natural and it's actually necessary, and they learn to embrace it instead of resist it, how they can actually flow even greater. We talk about the authority master key. What's a master key? The key that can unlock any door. And that's how I use the acronym of how to become vital in your life, in business and personal. So I do the deep dive on working on the people themselves so that as they establish their authority using the practical skills, they actually establish it in a much more permanent way that adds more value. And the reason value is important is because I totally believe in the universal principle that says you will be paid in direct proportion to the value you give. And unfortunately, Tanya, too many people are going, but Robert, I'm so busy and I'm giving value. But you become good at being busy, not necessarily productive. And there's 2 total differences there. And so I dive into how to become more productive versus being busy. Because if you learn to be productive, you can free up so many hours, which will then allow you to be present with family and all the other things that are important in life. Because I want your audience to realize it's never just about money. If you're doing something just for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reason. You're holistic. You want to cover the mental, the emotional, spiritual, physical, and financial. Cover all those areas. Because as you create wealth in all those areas, that's what allows you to have the life that you truly can go, remember when.
Yeah.
Like I talk about also the 4 currencies in there, and one of the currencies is experience. That's what I focus on the most now. How many times a day can I be so present that I'm truly experiencing the moment? See, and that's what will be then making up onto the remember when board.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember when I have a very unique pet, and that most people don't have. She's a princess. I'll tell you right off the bat. It's actually just now noon here, so it's about time for her to finally wake up. Don't wake her up before noon or she's a grumpy girl. And it'll be time for her when we're done the interview. I'll take her outside because it's time for outside. Her name is Gracie May, and she is a 265-pound pig. Now, don't tell her she's a pig, though, Tanya. She thinks she's a dog. And, the lessons I learned from her. And so do you remember when Gracie May taught me what Gracie May time is? May I share with you what Gracie May time is?
Yes, I want to know.
Well, we started bottle feeding her when she was 2 days old. She was, a wee little lass. And she's now almost 10, and she's not wee anymore. and especially when she was younger, adult pigs, they actually sleep most of the day. And so she likes to sleep. And she doesn't walk as much as she used to, but we used to go on walks when we lived in Calgary. There was a lot of pathways around our house. So we put her harness on and we go for walks. And you'll only ever walk as fast as a pig wants to walk. And that's not very fast, let me be clear. And so anytime I found myself getting overwhelmed, all of a sudden and stressed out, my mind would go, Gracie May time. I would go, I'd stop what I was doing, go grab her harness. Gracie May, let's go for a walk. I don't know why people think pigs go oink, oink, oink. They don't. She's like, she's a talker just like that. When I go to wake her up and take her outside, all the way out she'll be like, Come on, Gracie, keep going.
You can do it.
She's a character. And so as soon as we go for a walk, because you only walk as fast as a pig wants to walk, it forced me to slow down. It forced me to start noticing what's going on in the moment around me. And all of a sudden it became a huge blessing, because now it's like I'm going,
Yeah.
and we take one little more hoof step, and along the path, you couldn't go more than 10, 15 feet with someone else coming up and wanting to know and see her and take pictures with her. And we've educated a lot of people about what it is to have a pet pig, because they're like, oh, I've always wanted one. Make sure you understand what their lives are like before you do that, because a lot of people think miniature pigs will stay this big.
Yeah, that they stay tiny. Yeah,
that's right. And the reality is they grow for the first 5 years. And this is an unfortunate part of what breeders will do. Baby pig or a pig can actually be bred at the age of 3 months.
Oh my
and
gosh.
So a breeder would breed them and then go, see, here's mom. She's only this big. That's as big as your baby's going to get. And then 5 years in, all of a sudden they've got a 150, 200, 250 pound pig. And a lot of people aren't committed when the pig gets big, and all of a sudden the pig's, sent to a shelter or destroyed or whatever. And, which is the unfortunate part. And where breeders, some will stay small, but usually they have to do a lot of manipulation of the breeding to get it, and then they have health issues. And to me, it's like, just love them for who they are, whatever they look like. Gracie May, we weren't expecting to have her, but a friend couldn't take care of her when she was born. We happened to be there, started bottle feeding her at 2 days old, and we were going to foster her and find her a good home. Well, that was 10 years ago, and she's found a good home. And I can't picture not having it.
Yeah. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I hadn't thought about it in a long time. But my sister had a pig named Harley, and who was supposed to stay small and ended up at 300 pounds because he was fed very, very well. And the house was redesigned around Harley, so that he could get down the stairs. And it was so funny when you talk about Princess, because do you know that chairs like that elderly people have to get them up and down the stairs?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, my sister modified it, and that was Harley's. So Harley knew how to get into the basket and hit the button to get upstairs. So you'd walk into her house and you'd just see this pig so slowly moving
Love it.
up the stairs, because he just learned how to do it himself. But it's just this giant pig that ran the house. But it is, I mean, it's a lot of work, and I didn't realize it until, she had it. And I was like, Lord, this is too much work for me. Thank you.
Yeah. And when we bought this house we're in, it's a rancher style house, but we have a gorgeous basement with our media center and stuff like that. And the first thing my wife is, she's like, we need an elevator. Gracie May needs to be able to come downstairs. We need an elevator installed. I'm like, okay, we'll do that. Because we built a ramp for her to go outside to the back, down off the steps, because when they get older, they have problems with their knees. They can't necessarily walk downstairs. So my brother-in-law built a beautiful ramp. She's got this, people go, oh, you bought the acreage for Gracie May. And we're like, no, we bought the acreage for us. Gracie May's an indoor girl. But, well, aren't you afraid she's going to run away? It's like, no, it's like Saskatchewan. We could watch her run away for 3 days.
They walk slow, so.
They do. And it is a blessing, because, and it's a good reminder. One of the things on our bucket list is my wife and I are eventually going to write a series of children's books based on her, called The Adventures of Gracie May. And it's going to be all real life experiences. When we go camping next week out past Rocky, where we're meeting up with family, we'll be quadding and going through on Crown Land. She gets the whole back seat of the truck, and she comes camping with us. She loves camping, and so we're going to have one book will be about camping with her. We've taken her places, we've had her in hotels in Edmonton, and the hotel loved having her as a guest, because talk about conversation piece, and she was better behaved than most dogs that they allowed there. And so we're going to write this whole series of children's books based on her, which is going to be kind of cool as well.
Oh, I love that. I think that's a great idea, and a good way to sort of educate people too.
Yes. Yeah. And that's it. And not only educate them on animals, but everything you need to learn, you can learn from nature. Mm-hmm. She's taught us so many valuable lessons that's good. So there's going to be kids, just like an animated movie. Right. Now, have you ever noticed that in an animated movie, there's more lessons and humor for adults than there actually is for the kids?
Yes.
Right? That's why we love watching animated movies.
Yeah, they're my favorite. They're my go-to.
Oh, on one of the things on my bucket list, my dream board, my vision board is I originally wanted to be an actor. I wanted to act in something. But a few years ago, I made an adjustment. I want to do a voiceover
Oh,
for
I
an
am
animation.
so with
Oh
you
my
on
goodness.
that one. Like my son came to me once and he was like, I just read this thing online that somebody watched the Bee movie with Jerry Seinfeld in it, the
Yeah.
animated Bee movie. He's like 365 times. So you got your 15 minutes of fame, Mom. I'm like, yeah, I have watched that movie a lot. But that was like, if I ever wasn't feeling good or I had a headache, that was the movie that I turned on. So I
Yeah.
could probably write the entire script to that movie verbatim just out of my
Yeah.
head.
And people go, but it's an animated movie. But what it takes and the lessons, like the humor is
Yeah.
amazing. So I want to do a voiceover. I can't, I vision what kind of character they would have for me. Because I would be like a Robin Williams. They'd probably give me a script and I'd go off the script and just start going. Because that's just what I do.
I love that. I have to put that on my vision board because I would love, love, love to do that as well.
Right? Yeah. So yeah, yeah, I know we kind of went off topic on it, but
It doesn't matter.
this is life and this is success because business is not just about business. Learn to have the balance in your life. And I want to be clear with people. Balance isn't like everything's perfect and it's like, oh, balance, because everything's always changing. To me, balance is what are the adjustments that you're making. And so if your health is out of balance, I had to take 3.5 years off from training because I was overliving my passion and I got burnt out and went through 2 back surgeries because I forgot to stand the wrong or the right way on stage. And I didn't realize I herniated a disc. So to me now health is very important because you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have your health, what do you have?
Yeah.
And so that balance is in your mental, your emotional, your spiritual, your physical, and your financial. It's what adjustments, because the area you do not put the focus to is the area that's going to wipe you out in the other ones.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. So yeah, I'm always asking myself, how can I have a little more balance and what adjustments do I need? So 3, and I know we probably should wrap up, so I'll give you this as the last thing. The 3 questions we're always asking on things I do for myself or with a team once we've completed. What works? And we'll make a checklist. What didn't work? We make a checklist. No emotions, no blame, no just, it's just this works, matter of fact. This didn't work, matter of fact. And then what can we do different next time? And so from looking at what didn't work, we make some adjustments. And then we go again. So I just ran that 2-day mastermind. All the 3 translators or 4 translators I had helping do it in other languages, the person who hosted it for me, the guy that was running things behind the scenes for me, and myself. My instruction was to them over the next 2 days, please send me your list. What worked, what didn't work, what can we do different? So that the next mastermind we run, we enhance it to another level. If you take those 3 questions, all the people that are listening, if they do this in their life and without the emotion attached to it, just matter of fact, watch what they can do to keep improving.
Yeah. And I think that's such a great tip too for people to get started because you'll never create something perfect on the first go.
Oh, goodness,
So
no.
you have to get it out there and then learn and then keep improving it. And I also want to reiterate again, because when you talked about the story of Gracie May walking, I think that was an important one too, because in my head, what that story really reminded me, which I'm so grateful that you told that story, was there are moments in the day where I find I'll get frustrated, and usually it's over someone not moving fast enough, like Gracie May and how she walked. And it really reminded me to, to realize those moments and then maybe stop and go, okay, what is the universe trying to tell me here? Do I need to slow down in this moment? Is this a time that I need to stop, and just relax and not be so, which is a hard thing for me. If you ever want to know how hard it is, it just, like you said, camping, when we go camping, it is very hard for me because I will ask my husband, at what time are we planning on leaving with the trailer? And he will say 3. And if we are not in the truck leaving with the trailer, I'm like, you said 3:00. And he's like, we are on holidays. And I'm like, no, we need to be out at 3:00. It is 2:55 and nothing is done. And so this time he was like, I am challenging you not to get stressed about when we leave. And it was very, very hard because he said, we will leave at 3 and we left at 6. It took a lot, But I did it. And I was like, okay, I just need to calm. It will be what will be. I was ready to go at
Yeah.
3 and I was sitting in the truck, but I was like, we will not get stressed. But I think, that's such, what things is happening in your day that you can stop and go, what lesson is, when that frustration is hitting or when that overwhelm is hitting, what
Yes.
is the lesson here that I am supposed to be learning when
And
you're feeling that?
if you ever would want to have me back as a guest, I would go through the missing piece, which is the open acronym I use, and P stands for pamper. Because there's a phase that most people don't give themselves permission to do, which is to pamper themselves. And that's exactly what you were just describing. And there's so many ways you can do it. And I'd love to go in depth to really help the audience with that. Yeah.
Okay, I want you to write your book and then you're coming back. How's that?
Ooh, the challenge.
The challenge has been set.
Dropped.
The goalpost is up as soon as that book is out, and then we're gonna do like an extended interview and talk about all of the things. So that's your task.
Perfect. Okay, I'm all over that.
So let everybody know, where is the best place for them to find you and to cyberstalk you, and and talk a little bit about the stuff that you have coming up, your mastermind.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing, the book, robertriopel.com, just my name, nice and easy. Go get the digital copy, start utilizing it. You can follow me on Facebook. I do have a fan page. Unfortunately, Facebook won't let me accept any more friends, but if you like my fan page, you can follow me on the fan page. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram. Don't ask me how. My virtual assistant, who I finally got one, she's taking care of all that and making my life so much easier. Why did it take me so long? And but you can follow me definitely on social media. And when you download the book, you're going to get an invitation to come to a 2.5-hour training that I do put on to talk about the authority key. My trainings, Tanya, are very interactive. The fact that I'm actually sitting down to have this conversation and this interview with you is rare, because when I'm on stage, I'm interactive in that. And so when I do my trainings, I am as well. Over the next week, knock on wood, no more COVID delays, I'll actually be moving into my brand new office in my training center here on my property that we just built, where I have a 1,500 square foot training facility, plus my offices. My wife, she said, if I got the 1,500 square foot facility, she gets her 900 square foot she shack. So attached to that is her she shack, which has got her toys in it. So, and I like the balance. That's all good. But you'll be invited to a 2.5-hour training that I put on as a complimentary for you taking your time. Be ready to be interactive, and it'll help you on how to become an authority in your life. From there, it can lead to being part of masterminds with me, whatever you want to go on a journey, if that's something that suits you, because I believe so many people have a message inside of them that the world is waiting for. So if I can help pull that message out, because my specialty is making trainers authentic on the stage, helping them be present and authentic. And so I love to help develop trainers and help them get their story out in a way that impacts people, but impacts them to the most extreme depths that they can. And so that's kind of the journey.
Oh, I love that. Robert, it has been more than a pleasure. I don't know what the word is, but absolutely more than a pleasure for having you on the show. And I look forward to having you back
when
the book is done.
I can put that on my calendar. Tanya said.
Done. I'm going to have it on mine. So I know what you said before of when you're planning it. So I'm going to mark it on my calendar, and then you'll be getting an email. Hey, how's that book coming?
Perfect. Please do hold me to that.
So after Robert and I had our interview, I signed up right away for his webcast to learn the 6 ultimate steps to success. And one of the things that I loved the most about this webinar is he was there alive. So often I've signed up for webinars and you take them and it's pre-recorded. And it reminds me of Romper Room, to age myself, but I always feel like I make comments on these webinars and I'm like sitting there waiting for the host to see me in their little magic mirror and call my name out like they used to on Romper Room, but they never do. It really was, like Robert said, it was very interactive. We were high-fiving each other. We were saying our statements out loud. It was really, really good, and I enjoyed it. So I do suggest that you head out and register for it as soon as you can, and make sure that you also head out to get his book, Success Left a Clue. I hadn't had a chance to get through all of the book when I interviewed Robert, but I have since then. And there's so much in this book. And it's like Robert said, when you just read it on the surface, it seems very simplistic. But when you actually take the time to stop and do all of the steps before you head to the next chapters, it's amazing the transformation that you can create in such a short time with such simplicity. So like Robert said, don't let the simplicity fool you. So make sure that you head to our website, foxtalksbusiness.ca. Click on blogs on the left-hand side of the page. You will see this episode, all of the ways that you can connect with Robert on social media, as well as his website, to get your free copy of his book, find out more and listen to some of his podcast when he used to have a podcast episode. There's still so many relevant interviews there. So definitely head into that and check that out. And also find out more stuff that he's doing, because he has a lot of really interesting things that are going to come up, but I want you guys to figure them out. I also signed up for his weekly email where he gives you a clue every week. And it's very, very interesting. So I want to make sure that you sign up for that too, because there's been a lot of little nuggets that I've gotten already from, the few weeks since we did our interview until now. So I suggest you do that as well. And all of this can be found on his website. So no matter what you're doing today, whether you are taking the world by storm, whether you are taking a breath to walk as slow as a pig, make sure that you find time to have fun. Because as I always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?